Guys, this recipe is so easy and so delicious. You're gonna love it. I'm Lorella, and I help busy professionals like you take steps towards leading a more self-sustaining life, like growing and raising your own meat. Today, we're going to make some rabbit broth. We're going to cook my favorite rabbit recipe, and we're gonna talk about why you should consider raising rabbits as a meat source on your homestead. Let's get to it. Where's the thumb? Where's the thumb? There's a thumb. I found the thumb. In last week's video, I took the time to show you step by step how to quarter a rabbit for cooking. So if you haven't seen that, stick around to the end and we'll put a link to it in the end cards. Why would you want to eat rabbit? I mean, honestly, before I started this homesteading journey, to me, a rabbit was a classroom pet. It was not food. Just wasn't something I even really considered. But then I started to learn about it, and it's really actually a really great meat source for several reasons. Rabbits don't need a lot of feed. In fact, the amount of feed that it takes to get 1 pound of beef is 6 times the amount of feed it takes to get 1 pound of rabbit. And pound for pound, rabbit meat has much less cholesterol than beef, pork, or chicken. Meat rabbits are one of the easier animals to process. Once you get pretty good at it, you can do it in about 5 to 10 minutes. One 10-pound rabbit doe can produce up to 300 pounds of meat in a year through her kits. With a cow, you have to wait 9 months for the baby to even be born, and then you have to wait another 18 to 30 months before that baby is ready for butcher. That means that you've got 3 solid years or more invested into feeding cattle before you can get meat in your freezer. Guys, this recipe from food.com is so easy and so delicious. You're gonna love it. I'm gonna have a link in the description below. The ingredients are 1/3 cup butter softened, 1/3 cup of honey, 2 tablespoons of mustard. I'm gonna use Dijon mustard. You don't have to, you can use regular mustard. 1 teaspoon each, pepper, salt, and curry powder. And let me tell you, it's the curry that just makes this recipe so good. But if you're not a super fan of curry, don't worry about it. You're gonna love it anyway. My husband doesn't really like curry, and he loves this rabbit recipe. It just gives it just this hint of flavor that just makes this recipe pop. So yummy. Now you can raise broiler chickens in about 8 to 10 weeks, so they're a pretty quick growing bird. However, they're pretty much seasonal because you're not going to want to have chicks in the middle of winter, right? Rabbits you can raise year round, and you can raise them in smaller numbers. So most people I know who do meat broilers will do like 30 or 50. They'll have a big butcher day that lasts all day or 2 days to get them all butchered and in the freezer. And then they're gonna have to have a big freezer space and store them, and then they'll have like a chicken a week, right, for the year. However, with rabbits, you can just raise 8 or 10 at a time. And so I try to plan my litters so that I have new babies about every 10 to 12 weeks. That way we're just butchering once every 3 or 4 months. You don't need a deep freeze for rabbit because they're gonna be much smaller once they're frozen than like a beef or a cow or 50 chickens. You just put them in your regular freezer. So that's another reason that you might want to consider having meat rabbits on your homestead. This is ready to go in the oven just like this for about an hour to an hour and 15 minutes on 350. So easy peasy, lemon squeezy. I told you it's super easy. I am gonna baste it because all this is gonna melt off the rabbit. So I'll baste it probably once every 10 to 15 minutes for the first 45 minutes only. So here's my secret. With this recipe, don't baste it all the way through. Give it that last 15 to 20 minutes in the oven to just coat the chicken, and then you're gonna have this nice, crisp honey barbecue glaze that's just to die for. Yeah, you think it sounds good too, don't you, Duke? Did you hear him? He was ready for some. Let's get this in the oven and work on the rabbit broth. Another trick I've learned is anytime you cook with onion, celery, carrots, anything like that in your kitchen, you have leftover end pieces like this, save them in a baggie in your freezer, and the next time you're making broth, throw them in the stock pot. They will add a great flavor to your meat broth. So you have meat vegetable broth. It really makes a difference. I'm gonna add water to this and fill it almost to the top. People who haven't tried rabbit before often ask me what it tastes like, and they expect that it's gonna taste like chicken. And I've heard a lot of people say that they think it tastes like chicken. But to me, it has more of the flavor and consistency of pork, which would make sense because in the animal kingdom, it's more connected to, rabbits are more closely connected to pork than they are to fowl. I think the reason people equate rabbit with chicken is because you get about the same amount of meat off of a whole rabbit as you would a small whole chicken. So in that sense, you can substitute it pound for pound in recipes that have chicken. But I would also suggest that you don't overlook pork recipes because you can really cook it like you cook pork. We really like to cook it on the grill or with a nice rub on it, just like we would a pork loin or something like that. The next thing I'm gonna add is some apple cider vinegar, and you wanna make sure that you get some that says with the mother. It really doesn't matter what brand you get. You just wanna make sure it has the mother in it. The mother are those live bacteria that are gonna really add the value of the apple cider vinegar to whatever you're putting it in. And I'm just gonna go put a couple glugs in it. That's the official measurement. Glug, glug. And that is gonna help draw all the nutrients out of the bones and into your broth as this simmers. We'll add a little bit of salt and pepper. One interesting thing that I learned about salt is that salt is not only a flavor additive. It doesn't just add flavor to your food. It actually is a flavor carrier. So it helps the flavors that are inherent in the food move around your mouth. I saw that on a food cooking show. I don't know how they figured that out, but I thought it was a really cool little piece of information. Let's get this on the stove. It's probably time to baste that rabbit. I've now moved this to the back burner. I'm going to turn the fire to low and let it simmer. After letting the broth simmer overnight, I'll strain it and then pour it into Ziploc bags and put it in the freezer for use at any time. Look at that. Isn't that pretty? Smells really good too. Another reason you might consider raising rabbit, especially if you're starting out your homestead in the city, is because rabbits are quiet. Oftentimes cities have ordinances against how many chickens or limiting the number of chickens you can keep. So most people keep, 4 or 5 backyard chickens for eggs in the city limits, but you can't have like a whole flock of broilers, you know what I mean? Like you can't have 30 chickens in a backyard. However, you can keep a breeding pair or 2 does and a buck of rabbits, and you could raise enough meat to feed yourself year round. And they're quiet. No neighbors are gonna complain. Just clean up the mess. Ooh, and you know what else? Hang on. I had to take a bite. Oh, that's so good. It's such a simple recipe, but it's so good. Rabbit manure is called gardener's gold because it can go straight from the rabbit to the garden. It doesn't need composting first. It's not a hot manure like cow or horse or chicken manure is. You can do double duty with your rabbits you can eat the offspring, you can eat the meat of the rabbit, but then you can save their manure and put it out in your garden and you're gonna have better crops. So really, I can't think of any reason you wouldn't want to have rabbits in your backyard homestead or on your farmstead. So good. Every single bite is like pow, flavor. Why do I feel like singing when I eat? Food makes me happy. That might be why I'm carrying around a few extra pounds of Lorella. Thanks for hanging out with me today. And don't forget to click the video right there that will show you step by step how to quarter a rabbit for cooking. That was sad.